May we now invite our speakers of the panel. They will be discussing about fostering Hong Kong talents development. Let's welcome Ms. Karena Belin, co-founder of Whub. Mr. Ken Wong, Executive Director, Hong Kong Life Sciences Society. And Mr. Peter Yan, JP, CEO Cyberport. Thank you. Let's pass it over to our moderator, Mr. Alexander Chen, co-director, the Muse Fabrica.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chermi. Super good afternoon to everyone. We are very excited to have you and to be hosting today's Ecosystem Summit. When you think about an ecosystem, at its heart, it starts with the people that are in the ecosystem. And when you think about what has happened in the past year, what we initially thought was a short-term thing has become a lot more structural changes given the pandemic. And companies, societies, economies all have to evolve. The implications for that on talent is that talent needs have changed as well going ahead. So today we're very excited to have three very special ecosystem builders from Hong Kong to really share with us your thoughts about talent development and what talent needs Hong Kong has overall. So maybe to kick us off, if you can share with us, one is brief introduction about what you do, and the second thing is really what's your view on Hong Kong's state of talent right now. So maybe we can begin with maybe Karena.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be here. So as a quick introduction, I'm co-founder of Whub and AngelHub. Whub is the largest ecosystem platform and power connector, very proudly headquartered here out of Hong Kong, but with over 500 partners around the world, where we help startups grow and scale their business by connecting them to talent, by connecting them to corporate, to overseas ecosystems, and hence with that, arguably also helping all other stakeholders tap into the innovative power of the ecosystem. I'm also co-founder of AngelHub, which is Hong Kong's very first and still only SFC-regulated equity crowdfunding platform. And we also have a fund that co-invests into companies that are not only from Hong Kong, but they have decided to scale their business here in Asia. And last but not least, I have to mention that we're also very proud organizers of SIS. 21 this year was for Scale Up Impact Summit, co-creating futures, and a main event, again, of the Start Me Up Hong Kong Festival. And it was great to see the traction that Hong Kong got during this entire week, once being able to connect the world here through Hong Kong. So that's just as a brief introduction, but with that you can see that I'm very passionate about the ecosystem. And I think it's important, before we dive into the talent, just to highlight and build what Charles mentioned on the state of the ecosystem, because that obviously influences a lot the access of talent as well, and the interest of talent to join and make a difference in startups. So yes, we have given birth to, we count 10 unicorns, not only 9, which does make us already the highest density of unicorns per capita. And it's great to see that the diversity of these startups that have made it to such a successful level is really reflective of the diversity of the entire ecosystem, which holds true for the talent. So when you ask me what are the big gaps, I would first of all say I not necessarily focus on gaps, but would argue that a lot of the trends that we have seen over the past should just continue and potentially accelerate. So Hong Kong is already one of the most diverse ecosystems in terms of industries, technologies, geographies, but that holds true for talent base as well. From east and west, and very welcoming immigration law that really allows teams to be very multinational, multi-background, and have the capacity to scale companies successfully because they have inside their team all the know-how and knowledge they need to cater to a very diverse market. I think so with that, the big watch-outs is obviously keeping that diversity, keeping immigration's law open. I think it is very important also to counter the narrative that it seems the world is polarizing, because what we see, it's not. Startup founders are here leveraging the diversity of talent no matter where they're coming from. And I think it's important to continue on that trend. And I would argue potentially accelerate with regards to the Greater Bay Area. So one of the things I would love to see even more is more exchange of talent and teams between Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Macau, and the other 8 cities in the Guangdong area, in part of that GBA area. Because right now we can still see that teams are relatively separate and siloed. So even from some of our unicorns that leverage tech talent in Shenzhen, they would still say that the teams operate relatively independently. So that is one thing. The other one is youth development, and we may kind of talk about that a little bit later on. 5 of our universities are already in the top 100. I think that's, again, quite unique for Hong Kong and puts us as world's first. But I think continue on having more opportunities, hackathons, fairs, entrepreneurship type of programs, that would be important. And last but not least, a real gap, but that's not Hong Kong specific. Every ecosystem we go to in the world is complaining about not having enough tech talent. Definitely true. And I think here, making also sure with a bit of reinforcing diversity, of having more girls in tech would really help. So that would be my perspective.
Excellent. Very spot on with all the points, and super excited to dive into some of them a bit more. Peter, on to you next. If you can, share a bit more about Cyberport, as well as your thoughts on the gaps on Hong Kong's talent.
Sure. Yeah, I echo what Karena just said about girls, joining the rank. Yeah. So I'm Peter Yan, the chief executive of Cyberport management companies. We are 100% owned by the Hong Kong government. We are a platform to cultivate, develop talents in innovation and technology in Hong Kong. We focus very much on digital technology. And besides talent cultivation, we also put a lot of effort into industry development and also the integration of the traditional and the new economy. I think that is also very important, that sometimes, or at least in the past, people tends to neglect that actually a lot of pillar industry in Hong Kong has really needs or excited in developing in digital transformation that they need integrating with a new economy. So these are the things that we've been focusing on. Now, related to the question about the talent environment, in particular in innovation and technology, I would say in the last 3 to 4 years, the environment couldn't have been better. I've been in the industry in the IT industry for over 30 years, and I have never seen such a conducive environment for the development of INT entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. Now, just give you some specific figures. 3.5 years ago, the Cyberport community is around 1,000, just over 1,000 companies. Over the many years of development, we accumulated a community like that. Not, of course, everyone still stays at the Cyberport, but then we still maintain a very strong network among ourselves. Yeah. But then in the last 3+ years, this number has now gone to around 1,700, 1,650 something. Yeah. So this, you can see, is a 60% growth just in the last 3 years or so. Now this, I would say, is a very solid evidence of the attraction of a younger generation or entrepreneurs to develop their IT businesses and so on, and the environment change in the last few years. Now, you may have questions on whether the pandemic has a certain impact on the economic situation globally and also definitely regionally and in Hong Kong. But then there is this silver lining under the pandemic. Actually, quite a number of tech-related business has been flourishing very well. You will not be surprised, actually, if I say this, that education technology, for example, has become one of the key focus of investment and also further development. And this is just the beginning. There is no going back. People are now more used to, and there will be a lot of development opportunities for further development under education technology. Another area is health tech. So this is also, again, we do not need to explain too much that people are definitely more health conscious under the COVID situation and post-COVID. Yeah. So there will be even more opportunities for INT entrepreneurs to develop further in this area. And looking forward in the coming few years, I also echo what Vanessa and Charles mentioned in the opening, that GBA is really spectacular new development that will give us substantial opportunities, especially for innovation and technology in the coming years. Now, remember the 14th five-year plan, the central government has made it very clear that Hong Kong, in terms of Hong Kong's positioning, Hong Kong is going to be the international innovation technology hub of the GBA. So now with these sort of central government's planning approach, they will make this happen with a lot of pushes, with a lot of effort, with a lot of investment, a lot of resources to make that happen. So what this means to talents in Hong Kong, especially in the innovation and technology area, is that there will be numerous opportunities in the coming years. We are now only in the beginning, and there is already very promising development even without those. But with those, the situation will be even more conducive to their development.
Excellent. Again, I think the resounding optimism that a lot of opportunities have arisen in the past years. Well, the key question is how we can capitalize on some of them. So we'll dive into that a bit more. But Ken, on to you. If you can share a quick introduction of what you do and your thoughts on the state of talent on Hong Kong's ecosystem.
Thank you for having me. My name is Ken Wong. I'm the Executive Director of Hong Kong Life Sciences Society, HKLSS. HKLSS was actually founded by南豐Group back in 2018. We have three aims, hopefully to achieve in the coming 3-4 years: to nurture young talent in life sciences, to build a dynamic life sciences ecosystems, as well as to relate life sciences to our daily life experiences. I guess Hong Kong still has a lot of opportunities. It's been a melting pot, and will continue to be able to attract young talent, overseas talent studying in Hong Kong, technopreneurs, as well as scientists to come and stay and work in Hong Kong. In the context of life science and biotechnologies, I think we are doing very good jobs in the areas. We have very good universities, say 5 in the top 100. We've got 2 very good medical schools, as well as a teaching hospital. We'll be able to consistently attract young talent from overseas and the mainland to study postgraduate program in Hong Kong. We got many state key laboratory doing research in oncology, neurosciences, as well as infectious disease. During the pandemic, we've done a lot of research, as well as testing for both hospital authority, as well as to trying to track all these diseases. We have been doing a very good job, and we are actually attracting consistently a pipeline of mainland students doing postgraduate studies. Right, of course, for us, we hope we'll be able to continue to support the academics, institution, research, as well as startup, working hand in hand with our investment arm,南豐Life Sciences, which is investing quite a number of startup companies in Hong Kong, in the US, as well as in the mainland. I guess to me, for undergraduate students, there are a lot of new opportunities. Say, a lot of universities started biomedical, bioengineering programs. And I think all we need to do is to encourage more young people to learn about the business side of science. We must admit a lot of professors have been doing a lot of very good jobs in R&D, but they have been in universities for about 30, 40 years. I guess Cyberport, for example, or other technopreneur be able to help an NGO like LSS. We be able to support by intervening the academic systems, providing more industrial, professional type of experience for undergraduate students. Postgraduate students, I think we're doing quite good. I think what we need to do is to be able to encourage more undergraduate students, particularly local students, to pursue a PhD or research career. As you can see, over 65% of the current PhD students are from overseas, mainly from mainland China. And a lot of them, according to our recent survey, would want to go back to China to develop a biotech or a medical career. I think we can be able, if we can be able to encourage more undergraduate students, local undergraduate students to pursue the PhD career, at the same time letting them know that we got a lot of opportunities apart from staying in universities. I think this is another way that we be able to support the ecosystems, particularly Hong Kong Stock Exchange introduced the Chapter 18.8 some 2.5 years ago, encouraging more young biotech startup, small cap biotech startup with a very young history to be able to list in Hong Kong. I guess that create a lot of opportunities for young scientists, not only to stay in research lab in universities, but they be able also to explore other type of careers, say compliance, business development, R&D in farmers, as well as financing, investment type of jobs. I guess this is also one possibility that we cannot overlook, particularly with our integration with the GBA areas. I guess we be able to provide more opportunity for our young students to involve in the manufacturing drug approval type of jobs in the southern part of China. Last but not least, I guess to support more scientists, academic, who would want to commercialize their research. We got very good basic research, but according to my conversation with a lot of these academics, they would want to start their own company, for example, commercialize their research, but they don't really know how to start with, say, setting up a university spin-off company, for example, or IP protection, compliance, financing. These are all areas that we hope in longer term we'll be able to support in order to create at least like a more dynamic ecosystems, which be able to integrating young students, researcher, scientists, academia, as well as investor, more importantly. Yeah.
Excellent. Again, I love what you mentioned about both the need to develop technical talent, but also people with enough business and industry expertise and the intersection of that. So one of the things that have come out from all three of your sharing is the topic of youth engagement. So Peter, I want to turn to you. Like Cyberport has done a lot on education, programs like iTalent, FinTech training program. As you think about youth engagement, what other initiatives are you thinking about, and how can we do more on the youth engagement front?
Yeah, I agree with all speakers about the importance of youth engagement, and we've been doing that for quite some time. One of the things that we have been doing, and we will put in more effort, is the integration with the other GBA cities. We have a youth entrepreneurship program that we have conducted actually over 10 years. It started with Hong Kong and Shenzhen, and a few years ago we've extended that to Guangzhou, and then to GBA. Yeah, now we are focusing very much on extending that to all the 9 cities in the GBA area. And that has, in the past many years, been generating a lot of camaraderie, a lot of exchanges between the Hong Kong youth and the mainland Chinese cities, younger generations. And as a result, also resulted in a number of entrepreneurs, companies that landed in Cyberport, building their business and so on. So this is something that we definitely have been doing okay. And there is this new GBA plan coming in, that development coming in, that we definitely should do more. One thing that we also would very much like to extend our effort further is on even younger generation people, including secondary students and also even primary students. I think it is very important that they are aware of the possibilities with technology. It's not something that is really difficult. With the current tools available, platforms available, actually a lot of development can be done in a very sort of a low entry barrier way that they can even do coding without really learning very serious coding languages or whatever. So those are the things that I believe that we all, should work together and extend our effort in the younger generation beyond the university students to the secondary and also the primary students.
Again, love that. Again, like education, it's a lifelong journey, and starting earlier at its heart, right? Entrepreneurship is like a mindset, like you said, and it takes time to inculcate that.
That's right.
So excellent here. I think the other thing that came out from all three of your sharing, GBA, and it's something that has come out as a huge opportunity. But I guess one question from there is also, do we have the right talent to capitalize on the opportunity that has come out? So, Karena, I'm keen to hear from you. Right? You work with a lot of startup founders. What are founders' thoughts about the talent that they're seeing in Hong Kong? What kind of skill sets or experience do they want to see more of, and how can we actually get there?
So it's always difficult to make a general statement for the entire ecosystem, because now, again, we're all very, very happy that our ecosystem has evolved over the past years into a thriving hub with companies at all different stages. So obviously what companies are looking into is very different from earlier startups all the way then to unicorns with, huge employment base and with more structure that start looking a little bit more like established companies. But I think if we go back and try to understand really the fundamental difference between established companies and corporates and startups, is that established business and corporates have found a product market fit that they then standardize, simplify, and basically ask their employee base to replicate. Obviously, since markets are changing, innovation and agility becomes more and more important for these corporates that want to become more like startups. But I think the role of training, et cetera, is more about asking their staff to do things right. They have found a certain solution that they want now to be perfected and implemented. Versus as a startup, and again, if I start very early on, you are set up with a problem statement that you became very passionate about, and now you want to find a solution because you think a solution doesn't exist or all solutions in the market are not right. So what you definitely want your employees to do is do the right thing and to figure out what is, to do things right, sorry. So to do the right thing versus just executing something. So really what we very often see in terms of expectations that are not necessarily met from people that come from a very traditional career path, or even from young people, is that agility, that independence, that self-motivation, that understanding that at the end of the day what really counts is finding a solution that can adapt to the market needs. And that is something that hasn't existed before. So it's nothing that you can get taught top down. It's nothing even sometimes that the CEO or the founder of the company will tell you, but you need people that become very, very passionate. And there's a reason why our hashtag is Startup Passion, because it comes basically back to that. And I think what we can see is right now, for example, when we organize a huge conference that we just did, it's for me a very good example to say in this context, you really know how and who to recruit, because you can put people into a situation of a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty, and then you see if you have the reaction of your teammates not coming to you and say, well, actually, this is not my job, or can you tell me how to do this, or can you tell me how to do that? This is when you can really test if you have that mindset. And people that are career switchers, that come from a very corporate career, sometimes actually even have to unlearn this forward planning, this trying to understand what the procedure is, trying to understand what are things that you are not allowed to do. But it's in contrary. It's really about embracing the overall passion to develop a solution that doesn't exist out there. So that's why when the question came about how do startups go about training, I think it's really more a corporate question on how you go about training, because it's really training on the job. So your training is not a theoretical approach on trying to understand how to develop capabilities. It's a practical, on-the-job, try to figure it out. So what we very often still see is that that type of mindset is lacking. It's not necessarily taught. It's still very much this understanding of hierarchy. It's still this understanding of I first need to learn before I can get into action versus, again, self-motivated, very resilient, no fear of failure, and trying to try things out. So that's clearly at the very, very early stages. And I think one of the points I wanted to highlight as well that was made beforehand, because we talked about talent, and very interesting at the same time, the point about investors and investment came up, right? So at the end of the day, the money goes where the talent is. So we first really have to completely, foster the talent development, because when you invest into a company, in particular earlier stage, you invest into the people and you invest into that talent base. And the biggest struggle and the reason why Whub actually started off with a recruitment platform was really exactly that, to build the know-how, to help founders to build their teams, to drive the solution forward. And then, once a certain business model is developed, once we say you nailed it, then you scale it, then you get the money, you raise, and then you start recruiting further on. So I think that is really, really important. And obviously, if you start scaling a company to our, unicorns are really sizable with several hundreds or even thousands of employees, then you obviously start getting into more hierarchy in areas where you have employees that are there to execute certain elements that need to, work without failure, where failure is a problem because you need people really just to be able to contribute to that overall clockwork. But I think that is something that we always also teach our corporates. So there's a huge difference between that innovative power, which arguably requires a lot of different soft skills versus hard skills. And I think that's something, it's really interesting that universities should think about how they can bring the soft skill type of development into their curriculum.
Yeah, I think, again, fully agree. The capacity to deal with uncertainty, to learn and iterate, and to be super resourceful, it's very different from an industry where you are craving for structure and instructions from above to execute on. So, also what you said about finding market needs, right? So Ken, I guess, question that follows from what Karena mentioned, when you're working with, science students, PhD, tech talent, how do you help to nurture them such that they have that business acumen and that entrepreneurship? Because again, science is very linear, typically.
We see a skeleton of the biotech ecosystems happening in Hong Kong. All we need to do is focus on, as our speaker mentioned, the entrepreneurial skills and the soft skill side of the science students, say public speaking, storytelling, and according to one of our survey, a lot of these biotech life sciences students do not really want to start their own business, right? I guess a lot of them would still want to look for a decent, stable jobs in big pharma, in research center. PhD students still want to find a tenure track assistant professor career in Hong Kong. I guess we need to sort of change the situation. On one hand, equip them with the necessary entrepreneurial skills, soft skills, for example, like I mentioned, the sort of business side of the science skills. On the other hand, I guess we'd be able to attract more non-local students to stay in Hong Kong, as well as we mentioned earlier, attracting Hong Kong students doing overseas degree come back to work in Hong Kong. I guess this is very important in order to ensure that we have a pipeline of young talent doing tech-related or biomedical-related discipline. On top of this, I guess that's a very interesting point I'd like to make. It's the government or the hospital authority, I guess, can have a bigger role to play in terms of facilitating tech transfer, data transfer, as well as building a green tunnel that be able to allow us, Hong Kong, to communicate with the neighboring cities on data sharing, transferring sample to Hong Kong and vice versa. I guess these are very important things that would facilitate clinical research. And hospital authority, I guess, they be able to encourage more practicing doctor to do research. We have some very good example, say in Hong Kong, our advisor, Professor K.Y. Yun, Professor Dennis Low at Chinese U, and Professor Ho Dai-Yat. They are all practicing doctor, physicians. At the same time, they be able to access to clinical data, exposing their research to a lot of new trial to patient, and that they be able to translate all this clinical experience into world-class research. I guess Hong Kong is happening, but we need a system in order to reward and facilitate practicing doctor to go into research. For us, Life Sciences Society, we introduced summer internship programs back in 2018, first year in Shanghai, last year and this year in Hong Kong, in partnership with about 20 mainland China and Hong Kong investment, biotech-related investment company, as well as big pharma, MNC, and also some testing company, to allow them to have an opportunity to work 2 months in Shanghai or in Hong Kong. I guess doing biotech research is something very demanding. You spend some 16 hours in a lab, say 7 days a week, and over 3, 4, 5, 6 years in order to get a degree or stay on the career. I guess this is a very good example for us to follow, putting students in that industrial or lab context, wet lab context, and see whether they like this type of career or not. The earlier they know that they are not fit or fit for the jobs, the better we are doing the jobs. I guess this is something very important. On one hand, identify talent. On the other hand, we hope we'll be able to create more job opportunity, job types for different biotech or science tech students, not necessarily working in the lab, but they be able to explore other possibilities in investment, for example, in startup, or in working in a big pharma, in drug approval, manufacturing. If we be able to work with GBA, that would open up the door, creating a lot more opportunity for our young students.
Excellent. So we're almost out of time. Final question for you. One line from you. What should ecosystem builders be doing more of to help with talent? So Peter.
I know I can only say one line, but let me just elaborate on one thing. Sorry about that. I must say the thing that both Karena and Ken mentioned about letting the entrepreneurs, the younger generation, to try things out, I think is very important. An environment like Mills Fabrica, creating this kind of environment to let them have a chance to try things out and reduce the chance of failure. And if they fail, the implication of the failure is minimized, is very important. Entrepreneurs' talents are nurtured, not inborn. So you have to create the environment for them to develop further. So if there is one liner I would want to share with potential entrepreneurs or whatever, I would say that keep trying and just go and do it. Yeah.
Excellent. Karena?
Yeah. I just wanted to build on something we had actually explored before in terms of what is really needed, and a lot very often is questioned and falls back to the government. What can the government do, what the government should do, etc. I think at the end of the day, an ecosystem only thrives when all stakeholders join forces. And I think one of the things, and you highlight the Mills Fabrica as a very positive and great example, it is also important to understand that we have passed the era where it's startups against established companies and vice versa. It's not about disrupting each other. It's about jointly working on the problems that matters and solve them together. So I really want to make a big appeal also to other stakeholders, including established companies, to really take part in that talent development. At the end of the day, as we said, a young startup scales into a bigger company and hence needs more structure, and vice versa. Companies that have a structure, that had found a product market fit, market is evolving faster and faster and faster, need to become more agile again. That is the reason why we do a lot of programs of co-innovation with established companies, and just again, a beautiful example is actually Hack Asia that we we organize in collaboration with Jardins, where we really bring both sides together. And hence talent development is a joint responsibility from startups, from corporates, from community builders such as us, on bringing them together and learning jointly and develop particularly our youngsters together. And obviously the government has certain roles to play in there as well, but at the end of the day, we always believe in the power of the people and the entrepreneurs themselves, so that's a huge appeal to the ecosystem to join forces to develop our youth.
One sentence, I guess, connecting the dot. In order to build an ecosystem, I guess we need to glue all these dots up, including funder, investor, academia, NGOs, statutory bodies. To me, I guess more importantly, it's this science museum, the type of institution that help people, the public, to understand more about life science and how are we going to relate this topic to our daily life experience. I guess this is very important. To Life Science Society, for example, we hope we'll be able to start it small, to work within the group, say connecting the investment arm, the incubation arm, as well as business innovation arms and academia, in order to build a mini system within the groups and the staff. And then we hope we'll be able to expand that mini ecosystems into something bigger in collaboration with other like-minded or institution or people or scientists.
Excellent. So quick recap of what you mentioned, which I thought was fascinating. Creating a sandbox for people to try and fail, having joint responsibility and getting more players involved, and really connecting the dots, especially on the public engagement side, getting more people to understand. So thank you very much for your sharing again today. Tremendously inspiring, and we look forward to continuing discussions online. Thank you very much to our panelists.